Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Displayland podcast. I'm your host, Ollie.
And I'm your other host, Joey.
And today we're going to be taking you through the history and facts of the Red Arrows, as that is one of our biggest passions. We're also going to be taking you through the latest Iran war updates. Unfortunately, there isn't many. And we are also going to be taking you through all other newses from space to weather and, weather to just generic aviation news. And we're going to finish it off, obviously, with Takeoff Thursday announcements and any other aircraft announcements that have gone in the last week or so. So, Joey, do you want to kick us off in the Iran war?
Yeah, so there isn't a lot of news over the last week. It's actually been probably one of the quietest weeks, if not the quietest week, not just the Iran war, but just as a whole. So F-4 Phantoms have been spotted flying in Tehran. Now, this is probably due to the slightly better relations between the US and Iran at the minute, due to the discussions that they're having. So it's been a bit more safe for them to fly over their airspace. So that's probably something we'll see a bit more often as tensions ease a little bit, but it's interesting to see it starting so early during negotiations.
Yeah, and it's good that we can sort of update you about this because it proves that Iran do still have F4s. We have mentioned that they are running very low on their entire air force, and we did think all the F4s had run out and they hadn't got any more left. We thought they'd all been blown up, but this shows that they still do have, maybe a few from that they've taken out of storage or they've just had them in. Like hangars, very spare hangars the entire time. But yeah, like Joey said, there is an ongoing ceasefire right now, and I believe that is sort of coming to an end very, very shortly. So that's probably why they've been flying around. And yeah, it's just something that I picked up on the last week or so, and we thought that we should mention as it does prove that the F4s are still alive there. Now, like we said, there are still F4s in other countries like Turkey and Greece. However, their service life is coming to an end. So yeah, the only real F4 we're ever going to see is the Turkish one that's coming to Riyadh this year, and the Hellenic one if they bring that to Riyadh.
Yeah, I'm hoping that over time we start seeing other aircraft flying over Iran from the Iranian Air Force that maybe we thought were previously completely destroyed, especially like the F-14. I know a lot of people will probably want to see some F-14s flying again. So hopefully not all of them are destroyed, but as of now, we know that not all the F-4s have been destroyed.
Yeah, and also the F5s as well. I mean, me and Joey are seeing the F5s this year with the Turkish Stars display team, which used seven of them, which we mentioned in our last episode. And it's just something that I've always wanted to see because it's just these old, sort of vintage American built jets from, Cold War sort of era and just sort of after that and around that era. So yeah, I really wanted to see an F-14 flying, but unfortunately, there isn't any. Iran is basically the last air force that uses F-14s, but it's always cool to see F-5s and F-4s as well. But as we move on to the next part of our news, F-18s, as of about 2 hours ago, so about 6 or 7 o'clock p.m. BST now, isn't it? So around 6, 7 o'clock, they arrived in the Middle East from America, being towed by around 20 KC-135s. Aaron Rains had been tracking them basically all the way, all of their journey, and he posted a video which I sent to Joey, and me and Joey had a look at that. So yeah, we did know F-18s were coming over from America, but we didn't really know when. There wasn't really a given time frame of when they were coming over. It was just sort of we knew they were coming, we just didn't know when. So it's finally we finally know when they've come, and that we know that they have arrived in the Middle East now. So I'm sure they'll be doing some special operations, especially if they've brought the EA-18 Growler over, so the electronic warfare one. Basically, it jams all the signals. So usually they'll take one or two with the B2 when they're doing their long range strike missions. They'll have some on base and they'll take off, and it basically just like reflects the radar back or dissipates it, or it reflects it off somewhere, so that the radar guided missiles basically can't track them because there is nothing to track.
Yeah, this is just adding on to the impressive number of aircraft being deployed to the Middle East. I mean, you're seeing a bunch of aircraft go into the Middle East, but not a whole lot coming back out, except long-range bombers taking off and landing from RAF Fairford, for example. But you're just seeing all these aircraft pile in to the Middle East, and it's getting up there in the numbers now. There's hundreds of aircraft part of this operation.
Yeah, in the last episode, we mentioned the losses that the US has suffered so far. Unfortunately, we can't actually cover the Iranian one because there is no official report on how many they've actually lost. But yeah, the US, as of last week, or technically the week before, we did cover the losses, which include up to about 40 aircraft now. Unfortunately, like totaled or shot down or completely destroyed or severely damaged. So yeah, it's rising, but they are also sending more and more aircraft over to just destroy Iran as much as they can, really. So, yeah, I mean, F-18s have already been over there, and they were some of the first aircraft to actually be over there on the aircraft carrier that they sent over. So, yeah, they're just sort of refreshing now, really. They're just sort of getting new ones in and, keeping the total up there just in case any have been damaged or destroyed. So, as we move on to space news, I know Joey has been keeping close tabs of that. Joey, do you want to take us through our space news for this week?
Yeah, so it's a sort of interesting week for space news this week as we get to talk about a sort of failure. I know that a lot of people have classed this, even some space companies have classed this as a total failure of Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket. Now this is Blue Origin's second rocket that they've made, like second design of rocket. They have New Shepard, which just goes past the Kármán line into space, and it's designed for civilians. So you've seen, I'm sure you saw like Katy Perry and stuff went on this rocket, just went up and came straight back down again. But going to orbit is a much bigger task, and that's what New Glenn is for. Now, New Glenn is designed to reuse the booster, so it will take the second stage up pretty much most of the way to space, and then the booster will separate and come back and land on a boat, which is called a drone ship, as it's automated. And that part went perfectly on the third flight and the second flight as well. But the upper stage did have an issue in that the engines relit just after booster separation, which meant that it did get into orbit, but what it was intended to do is once it reached the other side of the orbit, which was higher than the side they were at, they would light the engines again just to make that orbit in total higher overall. But that engine relight failed, and the customer's payload that they had on the top did not reach the intended orbit and is likely to deorbit a lot sooner than expected. And this is being classed as a pretty big failure because the company AST Mobile, I believe, they sort of needed this to be up there for a lot longer, but that's not going to happen now because its orbit is a lot lower than it needed to be. And moving on to some other space news, the only other bit of space news, as I mentioned, drone ships. SpaceX has drone ships as well for their Falcon 9 rocket, which also reuses its booster. They've done this for a long time. They've flown Falcon 9. I think they've very recently just passed 600 Falcon 9 flights, which is actually like quite insane to think about, considering that's one rocket every like couple of days. You think back to like the 80s, mid 90s, even early 2000s, you was getting one every couple of months, but now it's one every few days from SpaceX themselves. And the drone ship that is retiring is called Just Read the Instructions. SpaceX is always a kind of funny with the names of drone ships. They have a drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You. They have the drone ship Just Read the Instructions, and a shortfall of Gravitas, which is a reference to a movie. Just Read the Instructions drone ship is retiring after 156 booster landings, and it will be used for transporting Starship from and to Florida, um, as they're currently being made in Starbase, Texas, but they want to start taking them off from Florida as well. So instead of just making an entire new factory, they're just going to transport them across the Gulf, and they're going to use the Just Read the Instructions drone ship to do that. So that's not a whole lot of space news this week. I know that we've been sort of blessed with the space news with Artemis 2, but we're getting back into normality now without a moon mission to talk about, just regular space news.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know much about space news. Like I said, I like space, but I don't follow all the news about it other than, Artemis and all the actual major missions. But yeah, Joey was watching the, what was it, New Glenn takeoff, I think that was, yeah, so it's the New Glenn takeoff. He sent me that while I was doing something. I can't remember what I was doing actually. But yeah, no, it's always awesome to hear, and unfortunately, with the New Glenn failure, not everything always goes to plan. So yeah, things like these happen, and if it's the only, if it's the only fourth, fifth flight, then this is going to happen, especially. But as we move on to the weather news, we have damage pictures have actually surfaced of an EF1 tornado that went through Fenwick, Michigan, of trees like being spiraled. So we'll put a picture up on the screen so you can sort of see what I mean. The trees have sort of been like turned around and sort of mangled in a very strange way that's not particularly been seen before, and it's just really fascinating to see it. I mean, the person who posted it said it looks like a pretzel, and I can't really disagree there.
Yeah, this tornado was from the April 14th sort of outbreak, but this picture is very recent, and I only saw it today or yesterday. And while the tornado did get rated an EF1 because of the way it damaged things, it didn't really hit a whole lot. To twist a tree completely, not just rip it in half, but twist it, I reckon it was probably a lot stronger than the damage rating suggests. Maybe winds upwards of 150 miles an hour, or at least in a sub vortices that hit the tree. But as the EF rating system is a damage rating system, it did only get EF1.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's like we've said this multiple times. Me and Joey think there should also be a separate damage system that is like confirmed wind speeds and stuff like that. We mentioned that on our last episode, obviously Nature's Revenge. We mentioned it a few episodes back when we talked about tornadoes. But yeah, I don't believe there was a DAO at the time of this tornado, and if there was, it wasn't particularly tracking this one. So, yeah, no, but it's really interesting to see, and it's yeah, it's very very strange. I think this is something that's very very cool. I mean, it is only a tree at the end of the day. Now, I'm not saying that we should get rid of trees or anything, but it's at least it's not a house or a person or a car or it's not actually a threat to a human life. So we move on to our sort of normal casual aviation news now, just sort of aviation, not anything special. And we start off with a Cessna that has crashed into sort of an electricity pole as it was coming into land, and it somehow landed then in a car park. So the sort of electricity poles were here. Its wing just clipped, like as it was going past, its wing just clipped it, and then it sort of nosedived into the ground just like that. So it's one of the strangest incidents that I've ever seen, and as of now, me and Joey can't find any updates about the pilot or anything. So we just thought we would mention that it happened. I'm sure we'll put the video up on the screen right now as it's playing, if we can get it up there, so you can sort of see what I mean. But yeah, once we get more updates, I mean, if we find any, I'll put some up on the screen as I'm speaking, so you can see if we have got any updates about the pilot. But yeah, it's a very bizarre incident, and it's not something that you see very often.
Yeah, I think from the initial sort of people in the area that the pilot did survive, but I mean that's unconfirmed and circumstantial. I mean, you will have to wait for the full NTSB report or um, a lot more valid confirmation that the pilot was okay or survived. But from initial reports, it does seem like the pilot survived. But we definitely have to wait on confirmation for that.
Yeah, now we move on to our second bit of sort of aviation news, and four Air Force cadets from Finland have been making some very, let's say, graphic pictures of their planes on sort of flight tracking apps. We'll put a picture up on the screen now for those watching on YouTube, and for those listening on any podcast websites like Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Basically, they were making male genitals with their sort of plane in the sky. So you can go check out that on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter or something. If you just sort of search up Air Force cadets from Finland, I'm sure it'll come up. So yeah, it's very very strange, and they have all been well. The Finland itself, sort of the military department, did make an official statement saying that they will be punished accordingly.
Yeah, when I first saw this on Twitter, I thought it was satire. I didn't think it was real. But then I saw it from like multiple different Twitter accounts, and that's usually when I can start to sort of verify it's real. And then I watched a full video on it, and I saw a few YouTubers reporting on it, and it's certainly a unique way to cement yourself in the news.
Yeah, it's it's definitely one way to get fired very, very quickly. I'm sure that if they didn't get fired, they probably would have had, been sweeping the mess hall for weeks on end, probably for a few months now. But yeah, very, very strange, and it's not something that if you are a cadet in any air force, it's not something that I recommend you doing.
Yeah, and now as we move on to an ATR 72 brake failure. Now, I don't have a whole lot of information on this, but I think Ollie has a bit more.
Yeah, so it had a brake failure. Very strange, though, actually. So there was another Park's plane basically just here. Let's just sort of do it like that. The ATR 72 just sort of travelled into it. Let's do it this way, actually. The ATR basically just sort of travelled into it like that. Now, it's not major damage. They sort of just clipped wings. Now, I'll put a picture up on the screen now so you can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's just a very bizarre incident that hit a 737, I believe it was, on the ground. And it's not something you see very often, especially with aviation brakes. They're always up to a very, very high standard, and they're usually maintained as well. So it's a very bizarre incident once again, and it's something we've got a very bizarre week for aviation news this time. But yeah, it's just a very strange incident. I'm not too sure why the ATR pilot didn't move out the way because it did actually also hit a ground crew vehicle as well. So it hit a plane and a ground crew vehicle. I'm sure that's going to cost hundreds of thousands in repair.
Yeah, I suppose, as you said, it's been an interesting week for aviation news, but it's also been a good week. We've not had any major incidents like we have on a couple of other weeks. It's been relatively quiet. I mean, there was the crash into the power
Don't
pole,
use the Q
and
word,
that sort
Joey.
of
Don't use
made
the Q word in aviation,
humour.
Quiet,
Yeah, I don't want to jinx it. Don't want to jinx it, but there's not a whole lot has happened, but I know that that's not every week, and we might end up with some stuff that we don't particularly want to cover. But as of this week, it's been. I mean, even our list of news events was a single page long, and that includes space, weather, and the Iran war. I mean, we've had times where it's gone over 3 pages before,
Yeah.
so it's been. It's not been a very long list of news.
However, with the weather news, I actually do want to quickly mention there is actually a severe weather risk building, and as of today, I believe it is, or tomorrow, of time of recording, which is Thursday, the 23rd of April, there is a multi-day severe weather outbreak looking, and right now we can only see enhanced risk weather going up to enhanced risk weather, but you can still easily get EF3, EF4 damaging tornadoes with that. I mean, you can even get an EF5 with that if you're really, really unlucky. So, yeah, enhanced risk is not something to mess around with. And if you are in that zone or even anywhere between, thunderstorm, moderate, slight, or enhanced, please take shelter. Please make sure you're prepared. Don't be scared. Be prepared, as Ryan Hall says. So, yeah. It's not something to be scared about, but it's definitely something that you should be prepared. So, yeah, I just thought I'd mention that the multi-day weather outbreak that we'll probably be covering next week is sort of building as we speak.
Yeah, I know me and you will be watching the live stream, probably even after recording this, if it's live now,
Yeah,
we'll
actually,
probably
I
just
did see Ryan Hall's notification on my phone, like as of like 5 minutes ago, which is why I'm bringing this up. There is a tornado on the ground as of 5 minutes ago, because it said live tornado on the ground, because it basically he'll change his the title of the YouTube video as it's happening. So if there's a tornado on the ground, he will change it to tornado on the ground, and once that tornado has lifted, if there isn't any, he'll just change it back to live like storm coverage rather than tornado on the ground. So as of recording this at about 9 o'clock, there was, if not still is, a tornado on the ground.
yeah, we'll definitely be watching it over the next few days. We'll be hopping in calls, uh, sharing our screen, watching the live streams, just to keep an eye on it. I mean, we're both interested in it. We may as well follow it as it happens.
Yeah, and we do actually hope you enjoyed last week's podcast about tornadoes. I mean, for some reason, my mum told me to not talk about tornadoes, even though, well, she said maybe a bit less tornado talk last time, even though the podcast was about tornadoes. But yeah, well, no, we do hope you enjoyed last week. We tried to put as many pictures up as we can. I mean, I worked overtime to get as many pictures up last time. I literally went into me and Joey's DMs where we usually send these pictures. So for the cream tornado, there was a huge debris ball on that. Luckily, it wasn't too bad. I believe it got rated EF3 in the end. So yeah, so actually talking about that, there was two EF3s confirmed on that outbreak. There was about 5 or 6 EF2s and a few EF1s and EFUs and EF0s. So yeah, it's not the worst tornado outbreak, but for those who were affected by the EF2s, EF3s, and even EF1s, we hope everything is well.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter a few days after it that people were sort of counting the number of tornadoes, and the National Weather Service put out the map of all the tornadoes. Funnily enough, the highest risk area had no tornadoes, but the area around it had the most, which just goes to show how unpredictable these things are, even for the National Weather Service. But I think in total there was something around 60 to 70 tornadoes, maybe even 80 or 90. I saw some different numbers, so it's hard to tell, but the number I saw the most was around 60.
Yeah, but then again, Joey, you say that there was no tornadoes in the highest risk area, but those, highest risk areas are mainly for just severe weather in general. I know there was like a hatched risks of tornadoes, which, yeah, fair enough. But just because there's a moderate risk, it doesn't mean it's a moderate risk for tornadoes. It just means there's a moderate risk for severe weather. That whether that being supercells, severe thunderstorms, flash floods, severe snow, like we actually got a few months ago. That there was a huge snow front that just wiped across the north and east of America. So yeah, but we're going to move on to the main subject of this podcast, which is the well-known Red Arrows aerobatic team. So the basic Red Arrows history is pretty simple. It was a multitude of teams that basically just all combined into one, with some also smaller teams as well. So you have teams like the Black Arrows that flew the Hawker Hunter, which are notoriously known for their 22 aircraft loop. So you think about the Red Arrows these days, they have 7 to 9 jets depending on availability, but they had 22 aircraft all in formation, with that did a loop the loop, as some people call it, or just a loop, which was just incredible to see. I wish I could have been there. So the pictures of it are just utterly insane. There'll probably be a picture up on the screen as of now. Um, it's just like probably one of the coolest pictures of all time. I mean, you get these formations now. I've seen the Red Arrows fly a multitude of different aircraft. So I've seen it fly the 747 from British Airways back in Riyadh 2019. I've seen it fly with the Vulcan. I know the Wedge. It did it with the Wedge Tail, the brand new Wedge Tail last year at Riyadh. So they've flown with so many different aircraft: the Spitfire, the Typhoon, Petruli France, and Petruli Swiss as well, and all these aerobatic teams. But even that'll make up maybe 15 aircraft or so. They've done it with 22 of the exact same aircraft, and it's just utterly insane. We also had the Blue Diamonds, which flew the Gloucester Javelin, and they were known for their smooth and elegant flying. So you can sort of see where the Red Arrows get their elegance from, as some people say. And also the Yellow Jacks that flew the Folland Gnat in 1964. They were also probably the most known. Sort of Red Arrow's history, predecessor and all of that. Most people will basically just say the Red Arrows came from the Yellow Jacks, which they did, but they also came from other display teams as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 22 aircraft loop, and as far as I'm aware, and uh, from doing a little bit of reading up on it, is still the world record holder
It
for
is,
the
yes.
most aircraft doing a loop in a formation, which is just insane that it's stayed that for so long.
Especially as you don't have the
And
technology
uh,
back then as well, isn't it? You're flying Hawker Hunters that were made in the 1950s compared to the Hawks that were made later in sort of the 1960s, 1970s that had slightly bit more, technology and stuff like that. But it's they've been advanced so much these days, and they've had so much continuous improvement over the years that so many displays use them. So you've got the Saudi Hawks, you've got the Finnish display team, you've got the Red Arrows, you've got all the there's they're also used for training for the RAF and the Qatari Air Force as well, that are based at Leeming and places like that.
yeah, and they didn't stop at the Yellow Jacks either. We had the Red Pelicans that flew the Jet Provosts. And then eventually they all merged to make the Red Arrows. Now, if you've ever been to an air show with the Red Arrows and had Red 10, you'll probably heard something along the lines of they got the arrows from the Black Arrows and the red from the Red Pelicans,
Yeah.
and that made the Red Arrows. And that is how it happened. They sort of just took aspects from different bits and combined them all into one, and now we have the Red Arrows.
Yeah, so they were formed in 1964, and then they basically just became the main display team for the Royal Air Force because basically all of these displays teams that we've just mentioned were basically owned by the Royal Air Force. So we had about like 10 different teams that we operated, and it just became too expensive, too much to operate, and some of the jets were going out of service as well back in those days. In the later days, in the 1970s, we started to retire some of those earlier aircraft for the more modern aircraft of the day, like the Hawk, like the Full and Nat. So it basically just all merged into one, and their first season was in 1965, 1 year after the team was fully established, and they started with seven Fallen Nat aircraft, which is sort of where they get the Yellow Jack resemblance from. The Yellow Jacks used the Fallen Nat as well, just yellow versions of it. And the yellow one is still flying as of now, I believe. There's also a red one that still flies, and it sometimes goes to Midlands in replacement of other aircraft. So I know in 23 and 24, there was a red one in 24 and a yellow one in 2023. So as long as they're still flying now, I do have a few pictures of them. I'm sure I can probably find. And yeah, Joey mentioned the Red Pelicans. That they still have a livery scheme for the Red Pelicans that flies quite a lot actually. And I saw it Midlands last year in replacement for again. I don't actually know which one, but it was a replacement for another one, another aircraft. So yeah, these aircraft some of these aircraft are still flying. Unfortunately, the Hawker Hunter does have a display ban in the UK after the unfortunate Shoreham event that happened well over 10 years ago now, actually. But they yeah. So most of these historic aircraft that they did used to use still do still fly, sorry, in the private hands and stuff, and especially with Hawker Hunter Aviation, they have like two or three that still fly. And when I mentioned me going to the Lake District, actually, those two of them were from the Hawker Hunter Aviation, and they flew right behind my ship, like I said. So following their seven ship with the Fallen Nat, they rapidly expanded to nine aircraft. Literally a year later in 1966, and then they created the very famous Diamond Nine shape that you will see today in basically every single display. I mean, it's such an iconic shape. It's very good for photos, as the jets are all packed together, and it's one of the most exhilarating displays that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I personally have never seen a gnat flying or a hawker hunter even. As you mentioned, you saw them at the Lake District, but I've never seen a hawker hunter. I think I saw one flying about 5,000 feet above my house one
Yeah.
time, but it was partially cloudy, so I didn't really get a good view of it. But I do hope to see them flying someday at an air show that I go to. I mean, they don't really attend, at least that I've seen, Blackpool or Southport Airshow, which are basically the main air shows that I go to. But now I'm starting to come to RIA and Midlands. Hopefully, I start seeing more and more unique aircraft like these.
Like the MiG 17 actually that is going to Midlands. But yeah, like I said, the Hawker Hunter won't ever be a display. It can be a static aircraft. So usually there is one or two that go to RIA, and I'm sure we'll probably see some this year as well. So yeah, I'm sure we'll always get to see a Hawker Hunter at some sort of air show as a static, but I don't see the ban being lifted on them at any point.
Yeah, so as Ollie was saying, they switched to nine aircraft in 1966 and got the famous Diamond Nine. Now, most people know the famous Diamond Nine from the Hawks, which they adopted in 1979, and they still use them to this day. Although, as far as what everyone can tell, they will be switching from them soon. We don't know what they're going to be switching to. I don't personally see why they don't just switch to the T2s, the Hawk T2s, but they are looking at some other companies to make their aircraft.
The
But
main company being
they,
Aerialis, actually. So Aerialis are making basically the next gen fighter. Well, sorry, not next gen fighter, next gen trainer aircraft, which could also actually be used as a fighter aircraft. Basically, what they're doing is. They're getting a plane and they're basically making it customizable. So think about something that you could do in, like GTA or something, where you can customize all the parts in your aircraft and stuff like that. Basically, you can take the back off, change it for a completely different like engine layout. So one, you could just have one big engine, and then you could have two little engines on the side like that. You can also have they're making a UAV version. They're making a trainer version. Yeah, like an unmanned version, a trainer version, all these different ones that they're going to hopefully export all over the world. And they have said that they are well on track with it. So hopefully we will be seeing this within the next 5 to 10 years. They have said that they're hoping to get out within the next 5 years. But with a jet as complicated as just taking the back off and taking the front off and moving all the fuel tanks around, I understand why it can take a very long time.
Yeah, it's basically an all-in-one aircraft. Like the most customizable. I mean, you look at like things like the F-16. Those are fairly customizable. You see different variants of those with different shaped fuselages and stuff like that. But this is a whole nother level of customizable,
Yeah, think
and
like
hopefully
Transformers,
within,
like
like you said,
Bumblebee and
yeah.
Optimus Prime and stuff, where they completely change from like a truck to a robot or something. But that's sort of a nice reference there, as you can literally they completely change, and I'm sure I might be able to find a picture of the jet. But basically, it's such a cool company. I actually can't wait because they don't even look too dissimilar to the Hawks. They look sort of like a more slipstreamed sort of variant of it, and it's just a more modern version. And I can't really blame them, to be honest, because they've been using this jet for almost 50 years now.
Yeah, so moving back to talking about the history of the Red Arrows, they were based at RAF Scampton. Now, this is where I knew them being based at for most of my time, knowing who the Red Arrows were. But they have recently moved to RAF Waddington after Scampton was bought out. Now, I would have loved to go spotting at RAF Scampton, but RAF Waddington, as far as I have seen, actually has better spotting area than RAF Scampton. You can sort of see straight to where the red arrows are and get a nice angle if you maybe sat on top of your car or even just stood on the ground. You can get a very good view into where they are parked. And now they are based at RAF Waddington, and I imagine they will be based at RAF Waddington for a long, long time.
Yeah, I've actually been inside Scampton. So when it was an operational base back in the day, yeah, well, I say back in the day, about 5 years ago, they did like not like base tours, but there's like a museum there. Basically, you're not actually allowed to like take pictures of anything because it's all it was all top secret and all of that. I mean, you couldn't even take pictures of, like the houses or any. Yeah, I went in there. There was like a whole exhibition and everything, and it was really really cool. Unfortunately, the jets didn't fly that day due to the weather, or if they did fly, it was only like two jets or something like that. And we were inside the building at the time. So yeah, it was a really, really great experience actually being able to go inside the base. Now you can also go inside the base at Coningsby. There's a museum there, which you can go in. You can go and see the Lancaster and all the Spitfires, Hurricanes, Dakota, all that sort of stuff, which I've also been in as well. So it is really cool that you can see some of these RAF bases.
Yeah, I have seen the front gates of RAF Scampton on my one and only time so far in my life that I've been to RAF Waddington and Coningsby. I went to both on the same day. I sort of forced my dad to change the route a little bit to go past RAF Scampton just so I can just so I can see it. I mean, I've played games where I've been on RAF Scampton's grounds, flying red arrows and stuff online, and just seeing it in person was a lot cooler. And I knew what it looked like having seen it in games and stuff, but seeing it in person was definitely cool.
Yeah, I mean, me and Joey fly for the virtual Red Arrows, like we said multiple times before in the podcast. So, yeah, we have been on RAF Scampton before in games and RAF Waddington now. Actually, we went on it yesterday when we were doing our Red Arrows training, which actually went quite well in the end, to be fair. But, yeah, it's really, really cool to see. I mean, I've only ever been to RAF Waddington once where I saw the Red Arrows take off, but they took off the other way rather than over me, which was a bit annoying. But it is the regular sort of way that they would take off, as that's just the way the wind blows, unfortunately.
Yeah, when I went to RAF Waddington, I didn't quite see all of them take off, but I'm also went there to just tick the box of I've been to RAF Waddington because my main trip was to Coningsby, but I did see two Reg jets take off, which is more than I thought I would get. But I mean, I was just sat in the car park eating my Mackies, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But and then a Red Arrows jet started taking off, and I did not expect that. But I got up. I I wasn't on the car, but the door was open, and I was like stood on the floor of the car, trying to get my angle with my camera. I did get a few decent pictures if I can find them. I'll probably put them on screen now. But Coningsby was sort of the main event of that trip, and it's to this day the only time I've ever been to any of those air bases.
Yeah, yeah, it's honestly amazing. But we should move on now to sort of the team for this year. So there is sort of a major discussion whether they'll be flying 7 or 9 jets this year. The team haven't officially announced it yet. Even people like Ted Coningsby don't know what's going on if there's 7 or 9. Joey said that there's 7. I've found that there's 9. So we're still very conflicted between what they're doing this year. Joey's said that they've only been practicing with 7 jets so far, but every source that I can find, including their website, say that they will be using 9. So it's sort of very confusing at the moment. But I'm sure we'll find out on the first display of the year, which for them I believe might actually be Midlands. If not, it will be one very, very shortly before that. So we'll see in the next month or so. But Red 1 for this year is once again Wing Commander John Bond. He was in a program a couple years ago, actually, as a Red 2 or Red 3, I believe it was. So it's actually really cool to see how he's progressed onto Red 1 and to lead the team, especially after. If we remember the crash that happened, that when we lost one of the engineers, he was in his rookie season or one, for one or second, first or second season back then. So yeah, it's really cool to see how far he's come, and it's awesome that he's leading the team. I believe this is his third and final year as team leader before he leaves the team. So it'd be awesome to see who's Red 1 next year. Red 2 this year is Flight Lieutenant Matt Brighty, another awesome candidate. Another awesome pilot. Which I will be well, with me and Joey will be seeing multiple times this year, at least 3 or 4 times this year. Red 3 is Flight Lieutenant Christopher Dean. Red 4 is Flight Lieutenant Rob Thomas. Red 5 is Flight Lieutenant Andrew McEwen. Red 6 is Flight Lieutenant George Hobday, so he's the synchro leader and also the Hannah leader, so the back 4 aircraft. Red 7 is Flight Lieutenant Olly Suckling. He was there last year as well. I remember he was there last year. He's Synchro 2. Red 8 is Squadron Leader Chris McCann, and Red 9 is Flight Lieutenant Dustin Wales. So, looks like a very strong lineup for this year, and I'm very excited to see what this team can bring us.
Yeah, you mentioned John Bond being in a program. I'm pretty sure he was also actually in uh, the Inside the RAF documentary, and the sort of most famous clip from that being the QRA scramble. And as far as I'm aware, that was John
Yeah,
Bond
it
in that
was, yeah.
clip. So he's one of the most well-known pilots in the UK, if not in the world.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I remember actually seeing that he was so he used to be a Typhoon pilot, and I assume a Typhoon instructor as well before moving to the Red Arrows, which are basically just the top 9 most elite pilots in the RAF really that apply, because they have to go through intensive sort of like training and a very large sort of application process that brings it down to usually the 3 or 4 new people that join the team.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Synchro and Hannah. Do you want to take us through a little bit of the layout of the formation?
Yeah, so if we sort of go through a diamond 9, so obviously you have the jets like that, and there'll be one in the middle. So the back 4 of that diamond sort of make a sort of mini diamond, sort of like that. So you have an aircraft here, aircraft here, aircraft here, aircraft here. They are called Hannah. So they are the back 4 aircraft, with Synchro being 6 and 7, which me and Joey fly online in our sort of online one. And the front 5 are called Enid. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, like that, as well as the ones you fly far out on the wings. Is it, Joey? I'm not actually too sure. I can't actually picture
Yeah.
it in my mind right now. I don't actually have a picture in my mind of how it is.
Yeah, so it's sort of a weird layout. You see in, for example, Big Battle, which is basically just the big arrow they do. One is in the middle, and then the even numbers are on the right side of the formation. So that's 2, 4, 6, and 8. And on the left side of the formation is 3, 5, 7, and 9. And in a diamond, you get the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 up at the front, and then the back 4, Hannah. You have 6 bang in the middle of the diamond, 7 right at the back. 8 is on the right of that smaller little
Yeah.
diamond, and 9 is on the left of the smaller little diamond. So it's a bit of a strange layout, but it does work for transitioning into maneuvers and stuff. So that's why they do it like that.
Yeah, especially like the 5-4 break when the five go off like that, and the four behind it sort of go off like that. So yeah, it does work basically perfectly when for doing maneuvers like that, which we hope to see this year. It might just be called the 3-4 break if they're using seven aircraft. Yeah, so 3-4 break, 4-3 break if they're using seven aircraft rather than 5-4. But I'm sure it'll be interesting either way. I'm sure there is multiple new maneuvers for this year. I didn't actually want to watch any of the trainings that they've done this year. I want it to mainly be a surprise because watching practice displays, I feel it just ruins the display for when you first watch it for the first time because you've seen it over a screen rather than seeing it in real life or even through a camera lens for that matter.
Yeah, you sort of have had it slightly spoiled in that when we do our online flying, we
Yeah,
do try and follow the maneuvers that they do, which is actually why I personally believe it's going to be a seven ship this year. Because during trainings, based on the positions of the jets, unless those have changed, the people doing the 3-4 split that you mentioned is actually 4, 5, 6, and 7, as opposed to 6, 7, 8, and 9, which isn't the typical Hannah, which
yeah.
is why people think it's going to be a seven ship display but with Hannah. So instead of 8 and 9 being part of Hannah, it's going to be sort of a mix of 4 and 5 being Enid and Hannah at the same time. So it's going to be quite an interesting one to see how they sort of move the jets around between Enid and Hannah.
I really do hope it is a nine ship, though. I think a seven ship does ruin the display. I mean, it is literally supposed to be a nine ship. That is the trademark of the Red Arrows, that it is a nine ship with the Diamond Nine. And especially when four and five have to juggle around being Enid and Hannah, especially for maneuvers like Goose, which is always a fan favorite. I personally love Goose. So you have five aircraft, you have one at the top. They basically fly like this, and then you have an aircraft that basically goes up and then through the smoke at the back. And that's with six aircraft. They only have seven in total, and with two of those being synchro, that's basically down to five aircraft. So can you imagine just a weird goose without that one? It would just be like these four aircraft, and then the fifth one that comes up. I think it'd just be a bit strange, and it would ruin one of my favourite manoeuvres.
Yeah, I'm sure they can probably cook something up. They can probably mix two maneuvers together or even do a double goose, which they've done in the past, which is where the front five would do that sort of triangle shape, and then you'd have 6 and 7 go underneath and do a double goose, which is entirely possible. But uh, I also haven't watched the live streams watching the maneuvers and practices, but I'm sure during our trainings on the virtual one we'll probably come across if there is a double goose, we'll probably come across it soon.
Yeah, so I fly red six, Joey flies red seven. So yeah, it's something that me and Joey will learn, I'm sure, when we're doing our virtual displays. But yeah, let's probably not get caught up too much in our virtual stuff, as it is pretty irrelevant compared to the actual red arrows themselves. But yeah, it's just something that we thought we'd mention.
Yeah, so moving on to a bit more information about the Red Arrows, they have performed in 57 countries, and that's quite a lot. You think they visit two or three countries every year, the UK, Greece sometimes, depending on if they're doing training there or not,
And America
Cyprus
usually,
even, and America as well, which they are going to this year for America's 250th anniversary,
unfortunately.
because countries have anniversaries apparently, yeah. But 57 countries, I couldn't name more than four that they've displayed in, but I just haven't done enough research to know. Besides the fact that there is 57 of them, I probably couldn't even name 57 countries if I tried. There's just so many countries to display in, and that is over 5,000 displays that they have done. I mean, they've been going for so long doing all these displays. It makes sense that they've done over 5,000, around 5,000 displays, but that is a lot of displays, a lot of pictures as well. You get a lot of pictures from them back in the day doing displays, even in some black and white pictures as well. They've been going that long. And during these displays, they can pull up to 7 Gs. Not sure on the negative Gs, but they don't really do maneuvers that warrant negative Gs. You maybe get negative one or two if they're upside down. But the 7 Gs is mainly for brakes, especially with Hannah, as they pull a bit more sharply. But 7 Gs is a lot. I mean, we talked about Gs a lot on this podcast, but 7 Gs is 7 times your body weight, and when you're trying to stay in a formation with that, you need as much focus as you can get. And it's not easy when all the blood is rushing from your head. You lose focus so
Yeah.
easily.
And especially as the Red Arrows don't have a fly-by-wire system, so basically fly-by-wire just sort of means that the jets physically cannot crash because the computer makes it so they can't crash. The Red Arrows are flown completely raw. They're flown pilot skill rather than pilot skill and a computer. So even, a blackout, a G-lock as it's called, that could be fatal to the Red Arrows, especially as someone, maybe if Red 6, if he blacks out like mid-turn, he's then got, he's literally surrounded in the dead middle, and there is another 8 jets that he can hit on a normal 9 ship display. So, it's, G's are very, very, very scary, really, for a Red Arrows pilot when your jet is not helping you in any sense. It is literally, if you turn right, your jet goes right. If you accidentally knock your jet left and you take someone out, that's completely your own fault. It's not like a computer failure or anything.
Yeah, and you mentioned with Red Sticks being in the middle, they do have some sort of safety tricks that they do. You might notice if you take pictures of them, the ones behind other jets, even if they're not directly behind, if they're off to the side, they are lower. And that's just because if the jet in front has to brake or like the engine cuts out and they lose speed, they're not just going to move back straight into the front of another jet. They're just going to go straight over them, and the other pilots have to very quickly react to get out of the way. Even though it will go past them, they definitely want to steer clear of it just in case. But they do have lots of different tricks to account for the possible safety concerns of flying sort of without automated systems. And that's probably why they only pull 7Gs. I know the Hawk T1s aren't exactly the most brand new high tech aircraft that can pull 15 Gs doing backflips, but they can probably pull a bit more than 7 Gs. But I think the Red Arrows might limit themselves a little bit just to account for that extra safety margin, considering they aren't flying with these automated systems to protect them.
Yeah, but I mean, they also do fly below just so they don't get caught in the exhaust. The exhaust can cause sort of like turbulence as well, and it can also make your like sort of windscreen canopy just oily and black and brown and just you can't see basically. So yeah, they do have a lot of safety measures. The main reason for flying sort of like this, you can't really see. They fly like this really. They'll fly below the other aircraft is mainly just so they don't get caught up in this oil and stuff that's coming out the back of the engine, but also so that if one does somehow fail and the engine cuts out, they lose speed, they will just go under them.
Yeah, they also fly lower, not because, but sort of an added bonus of flying below is how they keep themselves in formation. And I found this out through a YouTube video. I can't remember which video. I know Tom Scott did a video with them. I can't remember if that's where I found this out, but they basically have a reference image in their head of like the end of the wings aligning with a certain point on the logo or emblem, and that's sort of an added bonus of flying lower is that it lines them up for this perspective that they can use as a reference point. And that's how they really stay locked in that type formation is they have a reference point to look at. They know exactly what they're trying to make it look like. And when it does look like that, they're in the right spot.
Yeah, exactly. So Joey's just taking you through that. But I mean, they are really the pride of Britain, like the heart of Britain, the pride of Britain, like this episode is named. They are something that everyone wants to see. Even people who don't like aviation will go to events to see the Red Arrows, and that's how iconic they are. Is that they bring people who don't care about aviation to go and watch them. That's how significant they are to the nation. I mean, like the Queen, the King, they absolutely love the Red Arrows, especially the Queen. She used to always watch the Red Arrows, out on the like balcony of Buckingham Palace and everything. And the crowd there as well. I know mainly to see the Queen, but I mean a lot of people would also be there to see the Red Arrows. There would also be like fields where just like spotters and people will go to watch the Red Arrows and the fly past go over. So, and they carry around the flag basically behind them with their smoke. I know it mainly looks like the French flag and stuff like that, but they use the colours of the Union Jack being red, white, and blue. And they go over to America and spread the UK ismness that they bring, in the 57 countries they've displayed in. They've brought the British flag with them, and sort of. They've just basically been the pride of our country. They've been, patriotism of this country.
Patriotism, yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned that it brings people who don't even particularly care about aviation to it. I have a lot of friends who don't care about aviation, who I sometimes see going to these air shows, especially Blackpool Air Show because it's free. And a lot of people who go to Blackpool Air Show go to it because it's a local event and they get to see the Red Arrows. They don't necessarily care about the aviation side of things, but they care about the spectacle of the red arrows, which is something very unique to sort of multi-aircraft display teams that you smoke. You see the Blue Angels, the Thunderbirds, um, the Swiss display team, the French display team. They all bring people who don't necessarily care about aviation, but love the spectacle of seeing that sort of display. And that's what brings a lot of people into aviation. I know I got into aviation through the Red Arrows. Now I might have gotten to the Red Arrows through YouTube videos, but I got into the main sort of bit of aviation through the Red Arrows, and that's how I learned more about it. That's uh, how I got into like photography and things like that. Is through the Red Arrows getting me into aviation, and it just sort of snowballed from there. So it really is, I mean, it's what it's for. It's to bring people into the aviation sphere, bring people into the RAF. They're basically an RAF advertisement. That is the main goal. It's to advertise the RAF, and they do an incredible job at that.
Yeah, they are probably the best display team in the world, in my opinion. Or at least like nation display teams. So obviously, like the French one, the Turkish Stars, the Petruli Swiss, Red Arrows, Blue Angels, Thunderbirds, like the best national display team. Now, I have to say that there are probably better display teams than the Red Arrows out there, 100%. Like, especially in different categories as well. I mean, I personally love the Turbulent display team, which I've loved since 2014 at Dunsfold Wings and Wheels. They became my favourite then, and I've loved them ever since, But for the best, definitely 100% best national display team, well, I mean, everyone from their country is going to say that theirs is better than the rest, but I personally think the Red Arrows just beats them all, just because of the sheer amount of like concentration that you need, raw jet flying skill that you need, especially as an old aircraft. Anything can happen to this aircraft. It's from the 1960s, 1970s. Like Joe said, they adopted it in 1979. So it's a very old aircraft, and they're running out of parts. So it's. I just think that the amount of skill that you need to fly these jets sort of tops the rest.
Yeah, I would definitely say that they're my favorite national display team. And I know I haven't really seen many. I've seen the Red Arrows and the Italians, Frieze Tricolore. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but
Yeah. So yeah.
I've seen those two. And out of those two, I would say the Red Arrows are my favorite. The Italian one is great, but I think just, I mean, I'm British. I think I'm sort of supposed to find it as my favorite. I mean, I've seen them everywhere. They are like at every air show you go to in the UK, basically, and you see them everywhere on news, everywhere. So they are definitely my favorite. And I mean, you said that every country would find theirs the favorite. There's a lot of argument between the Blue Angels and the Red Arrows. And at the end of the day, it's not a competition. I mean, there's a bit of friendly rivalry between them. There's obviously the online debate as to who's better. But I did see someone describe it in a way that I think sums it up, in my opinion, the best, in that the Blue Angels are the heavy metal and the Red Arrows is sort of the opera. The Red Arrows do a sort of more elegant, slower paced display. They're not reaching those like super high, borderline supersonic speeds. They're not flying past at 10 feet above your head. They're staying in formation as much as they can. Whereas the Blue Angels are doing quick maneuvers. They've got something called the sneak pass to literally
Yeah.
scare you as it flies past at, like I said, borderline supersonic speeds. They are two different displays trying to do different things. And I would personally love to see the Blue Angels because I think it would be an experience to see them. But I think at the end of the day, I'll still come home to the UK saying that the Red Arrows are the best because they are the Red Arrows. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I've seen loads of teams. I've seen the Breitling team. I've seen the Petula Fra. I've seen the Free Tricolori, the Spanish display team. I don't know what that's called. I'm just not going to bother with that. But I've seen the Brightlings as well. I don't know if I mentioned that. I don't think so. But yeah, and I've seen the Red Arrows, and I'm also going to be seeing the Turkish Stars this year. And I'm sure the Free Tricolori will come back. I mean, they went last year. They go basically every year. So it's just I've seen so many, and I have to say the Red Arrows are the best. I mean, the Free Tricolori, they are insane. I love their display. I mean, especially when they're all spread out. You have one up here, one down here. And then they do all their rolls and all that stuff with all the smoke, and it's just like, well, what is going on? But yeah, I mean, like Joey said, they're all doing different things. They're all a formation aerobatic team, but the Blue Angels are there to scare you. The Red Arrows are there for elegance. The Free Strokalori are just crazy because they're just everywhere all at once and their landing gears down and they're bloody stalling and then coming back. It's just, yeah. Um, there's not much to say about the Prou de France because they broke down twice when I went to Riyadh, so I can't really comment on them. But yeah, I mean, the Brightlings, they were really nice actually, very unique, but again, I think the Red Arrows are just slightly better.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like I said, it isn't a competition. So if I would recommend trying to see as many of these displays as you can because you can see videos of them. I've seen videos of the Blue Angels, the Thunderbirds, uh, Free Tricolori, and especially that last one, Free Tricolori. Seeing it on a video and then seeing it in person are two completely different things. Which I think is going to be the same for seeing the Blue Angels. And like one day I want to go to America and see the Blue Angels and the F-22 Raptor. But the Blue Angels would be something to see, and I would take my camera with me and I will get as many pictures as I can because it's not exactly the cheapest trip to go to see the Blue Angels just on a weekend going to an air show. So I will definitely be taking a lot of videos and pictures if I ever do. But I will be coming home to the Red Arrows. So
So, Joey, you were talking about a little bit about earlier about sort of your early stages in the Red Arrows and sort of how that got you into aviation. Do you want to expand a little bit more onto that?
yeah, so growing up, I always went to Blackpool Air Show. My family did sort of what a lot of people who go to Blackpool Air Show do. You live in the area. It's an event. It's probably the biggest event of the year in the Northwest. I don't personally know of any other bigger ones. So we went there every year or so. The earliest picture I can find is either 2013 or 2014 of the Red Arrows. So that's sort of where I first saw them, but I didn't really get into aviation until 2017, 2018, just before sort of COVID, a few years before COVID, with a YouTube channel that did it. There'll be a few people who have seen it. The Red Sparrows. They don't do anything anymore, but they did it in GTA, which of all games to do it, GTA is the most unlikely option. It's not got the Hawk T1s in it. It's not designed for air shows, but that's where I sort of first got into the virtual aspect of aviation. And then moving on, I just kept on watching them for a few years, and then I downloaded Roblox of all things, I started playing games on there because I didn't have GTA at the time. Started playing aviation games on there, got into the virtual aviation space, joined a few display teams on the virtual aviation space, and then it just sort of snowballed after that. I'd go to Manchester Airport, runway visitor park. I'd ask to go to air shows because we sort of stopped going to them after COVID because, well, I think everything took a hit socially for everyone. But I began asking to go to these air shows, and then over time, just snowballed more and more. And then it sort of mainly kicked off more when I got a camera because then I really started asking to go to places. Manchester Airport a lot more, Blackpool Air Show every year, Southport Air Show every year, and now this year, Blackpool, Southport, Riyadh, and Midlands Air Festival. My parents don't exactly appreciate it because I don't have a driver's license, so they have to sort of make room in their schedule to take me to air shows. And since we don't stay overnight at these air shows, especially Riyadh and Midlands, they're a lot further away. Blackpool we can just drive to half an hour before it starts and be there in time. But these other air shows we have to get up at like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, drive all the way down, wait in all the traffic and the queues to get in, uh, watch the air show, and then it's a 3-4 hour drive back. So I'm asking a lot, but I mean, it's air shows. Come on, I gotta try and get to as many as I can in a year. And I think Midlands was sort of uh, pushing it a little bit this year, but I managed to convince them. So that's sort of how I got into aviation. It started with the Red Arrows. It's weirdly through GTA, which of all the things is not where you would expect it to start, but it's it's definitely been one of my favorite things for the last 5+ years is aviation, thanks to the Red Arrows.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should definitely start staying overnight if you really can. I mean, if you have the money for it, it is 100% worth it. I mean, I mean, me and my family, we have to drive like 6 hours for some of these air shows, which I know is a lot longer than yours, but we stay over and everything, and I just think it's definitely worth it, especially going for multiple days. Sorry, I'm still a bit ill this week. But yeah, it is definitely worth it, and it's. I mean, I know it's more money, 100%. You know, everything it costs money these days, but yeah, it's worth it for me. It's definitely worth it for my family to see multiple of these, because especially if the day, like, let's say Midlands, you're going on the Sunday. If that's raining and all the displays are cancelled, then that's it for you. But I'm going on the Friday and the Saturday, so at least if they're somewhat sunny, cloudy, whatever, and the displays go ahead, I've actually had the opportunity to see them. Like if it was raining on the Saturday, I still have Friday and Sunday to see the displays that I want to see, you know. So I just think going for multiple days is definitely a very good option for me personally.
Yeah, I think going forward in the future at some point, I mean, the main problem is the financial constraints at the end of the day, but going forward when I have a job, I know it's definitely a lot harder to stay somewhere for multiple days when you have a job, but at least I will have the money to pay for tickets for both days and somewhere to sleep. But going forward in the future at some point, that would be my plan, is to stay and watch all the days of the air show. But as of right now, I'm just going for one day, just watching the air show and then going home. But you actually mentioned you staying over. How did you get into the Red Arrows and aviation as a whole?
Yeah, so I have mentioned before slightly that Dunsfold Wings and Wheels in 2014 was my first ever air show. But I had Red Arrows models before that. I had loads of plane models before that. I had, yeah, just so much. Some of them are actually in my display cabinet. I might be able to find them, but I'm not going to do it right now. Um, so yeah, Dunsfold Wings and Wheels 2014, the Red Arrows went there, and I just love the sound of the jets. The jets, honestly, are something not because they're not so loud that your ears are ringing for like an hour afterwards, but they're not quiet so that you physically can't hear it. You know, it's a but the thing is, you know, the thing with the engines though is that obviously sound travels slower than light and all that, but there is such a massive delay sometimes with some of these jets. Like you'll see like the Hannah brake when the jets go up and across and everything, and then you still have to wait like 5 seconds to be able to hear the actual noise of the jets, which is it doesn't even happen with like the Spitfire or anything. Even that has a very small sort of delay between the sound of the aircraft from the aircraft flying past and this sound coming after it. But yeah, with the Hawk C1s and Hawk C2s, I've always found that there is a huge delay somehow between the sound and the actual jet. But I mean, like I said, they are the heart of Britain. They are something that I've watched. I mean, Britain's Ultimate Pilots. I used to watch that when that was on back in 2015, and that also got me really invested in the Red Arrows. It's also one of the reasons why I got invested into the Typhoon, like we have on our merch here, because well, sorry, emblem, sorry, but because it was such an amazing program as well, and it's actually what also got me into Coldplay because I used to play they played Coldplay Viva La Vida at the end of the Typhoon one, which just got me into Coldplay for some reason. But yeah, no, it's just the way that they portrayed the Red Arrows as well. I don't know, the commentator was just so good. I don't know, he just put it into such a nice perspective. But as a 6-year old, well, 6 and 7-year old. it really fascinated me the way that he put it, because I could actually understand it being so young as well. And I was like, "Oh, mum, can we go see the Red Arrows, mum? When can we see the Red Arrows? When can we go to another air show? You know." My sister loves the Red Arrows as well. I know, you know, my family loves them as well. My sister loves them a lot. She's always asking where the Red Arrows. You know, she's like, "Where's Red Arrows? Where's the Red Arrows? Where's the Red Arrows? When are they on? When are they on?" Even at air shows that they're not at. You know, so it's yeah, my whole family loves them. We have Red Arrows hats, we have Red Arrows models, flight tags. We are just like a Red Arrows family, really. We are like the. I literally have a poster up on my wall right now of the Red Arrows. We have some out on the wall, the stairs as well. And actually, the one that's up on my wall, I know you can't see it, but it's literally just on my wall in front of me, really, is the one that I got at Blackpool Air Show last year when I met up with Joey. So we got that then, and that is the 2025 one. We also have like the 2022 one, the 2023 one. We also have the like Queen's 75th like birthday fly past one with the red arrows on it as well, and yeah, it's just such an amazing thing. We love the red arrows here. Like I said, I'm sure there's probably some models in my display cabinet somewhere. There's two Lego ones actually that I can see just by looking now, and they're at the top. So yeah, like I said, we're a very big Red Arrows family. We've been supporting them throughout the years, and I mean, my mum, while not like fully invested in aviation, she still enjoys them. I mean, she enjoys them because I enjoy them, and that's what makes her happy. But she also does enjoy seeing the red arrows, and she's always got a phone out videoing the red arrows as well, which is the only thing she ever videos and puts it on her Facebook and everything. And it's but she actually does. I believe she actually does have some photos, some very rare photos of both Lancasters and the Avro Vulcan flying with the Nats at Dunsfer Wings and Wheels. So actually, credits to her on that, because even I don't know where the ones of those are, because I can't even find them. So
Yeah, you mentioned your family being a Red Arrows family. I wouldn't say mine is, but when we go to air shows and stuff, if I mention beforehand that the Red Arrows aren't going, my mum will joke about saying, "What's the point in going?" Because that's sort of the main display for my mum and my dad. I mean, my dad loves the Typhoon. He loves hearing the raw power of the engine, which actually is my first memory of air shows. Is Blackpool Air Show, probably around 2013, 2014, and I didn't know when it was going to start, and the Typhoon was starting the display. Um, so we were getting like it must have been ice cream or something from the ice cream van. We couldn't see anything except the ice cream truck,
yeah,
and
yeah.
just I was like I don't even know, like 7 years old, and I'd never seen a jet before or heard a jet before, and all I hear just immediately this loud thundering,
Just like the engine
roaring past.
spooling
I
up and everything as
Yeah,
well, as especially when you go to like
like
Riyadh, when you hear the engine spooling up, like you, because you know they'll have the brakes on for like a few seconds before they start rolling up, so you hear it's just as they're like spooling the engines up. You can just hear the power, and you're like, okay, it's coming. Because the thing is, you'll look down the end and you'll say, okay, when is it going to start rolling? When is it going to start rolling? And then you just hear the afterburners ignite, and you're like, okay, it's coming, you know. But with the red arrows as well, like I never ever see them in the middle of the day, or like like a schedule between like 2 and 4, because everyone goes there for the red arrows. If they put them in the middle of the day, they're just gonna leave after the red arrows. That's why you always put them at the very start as the opener, or as like near the end as a closer, because people will just leave after, like 2 3 hours of the air show if they're in the middle, and I think that just ruins it. So a lot of air shows will put them at the start or at the end. I know Blackpool last year they put them at the first display of the day on one of the days. I can't remember if that was the day you went or not, but they are never in the middle. With Midlands, they usually be on about 4 to 5 o'clock. So Midlands is usually 6 hours, so between 12, oh no, 11 and 5, I think it is. So yeah, they usually put the red arrows on about half 4, and maybe one after that, maybe like a pit special or something like that afterwards. Or they'll put them at the very start of the day. So I remember last year, I believe it was, or the year before that, they put it on one day. They were on midday, to basically not open the show, but to be one of the first performances. And then the next day they were on at like 4:30 to close the show. So yeah, I mean, I think that's so valid, because if I was organising an air show, I would definitely do the exact same, because I mean, it doesn't affect me. They've given me their money and everything to come and watch the Red Arrows, so it doesn't really matter. But from a sort of logical point of view, you would want more people to stay until the end of the air show instead of just leaving halfway through.
Yeah, I think Blackpool Airshow, as you mentioned, is a good example of it because there's been multiple times where I've been to Blackpool Airshow. I've arrived relatively late into the day because, well, not late into the day, but just before the displays start because it's like an hour away from me. We're not we're not really rushing to get there. I know you was there before everyone else was just to get the best seats, but normally I'm right at the back with my big lens zooming over everyone's heads, and you can see as don't quote me on this, but I think the normal schedule they go for is on the Saturday, the Red Arrows open the entire weekend, and on the Sunday, they close the entire weekend. I don't know if that's the main schedule they go for, but based on my memory and just times going, that seems to be what they do most often. And you see on the Saturday, if you're at the back behind everyone, as soon as the Red Arrows have displayed, like
Everyone
half of the
goes
people
there.
just start going home. Yeah. Like the only people that stay are the people that want to see the typhoon or the people heavily into aviation. So they are definitely very popular and probably the most popular display team in the world. Maybe definitely the UK, but maybe the world as well.
Yeah, well, at these smaller air shows, you put the red arrows at the start and the typhoon at the end, or the typhoon at the start and the red arrows at the end. Because once the red arrows have displayed, then people wait for the typhoon. And if you put that like halfway through the day, people then leave after the typhoon. It's just like right, okay. So you put one at the start, one at the end. You just sort of switch that around, really. At Riyadh, it doesn't really make a difference because there's like 500. Well, this year there's not exactly any fast jets, even though it's fighter meet or whatever it is. But that's I'm here to see everything. I'm excited to see the Turkish stars. I'm excited to see the Augusta. I think it's called the. It's a very weird helicopter, but apparently it's also a very rare helicopter. I'm also excited to see the NH90, which I've never seen before, but it's one of my favorite helicopters. So, um, with Riyadh, there's just so many different aircraft that people go to see. But with like Blackpool, usually there will literally be a generic lineup that you can expect to see every year, which includes the Reds, the Typhoon, the Gyrocopter, the Pit Special, the Wing Walkers, just to name a few. They're like sort of the main displays that you are 100% going to see, like the Sally B or the BBMF, depending on which availability and maintenance and stuff like that. But there's some very guaranteed ones that will go, and that's why there is such a set schedule.
Yeah, and I suppose, as you mentioned, Riyadh as well. Riyadh costs money, whereas Blackpool Airfield doesn't. So people can just turn up to Blackpool just to watch it. They don't have to pay for a ticket. They don't have to uh, buy a ticket well in advance. It's sort of just a day out with the family just to see the Red Arrows, not to go and watch 6 hours of an air show. You just go a day trip out to Blackpool to see the Red Arrows, and I think that's what a lot of people do. I know, as I mentioned, my friends earlier. I think that's basically what they do as well. Is they go watch the Red Arrows, maybe stay for the Typhoon sometimes, depending on how they're feeling, and then just go home again. But I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. The Red Arrows, I don't blame you. The Red Arrows are the best ones at any air show, in my opinion. But the other displays are still great to watch. Um, you get displays like the gyrocopter. Is definitely one of my favorites, just because of how close it gets to the crowd. I mean, when we were there last year, we were basically right at the front, and it almost felt like you could probably throw a stone
Yeah.
and hit the
Yeah, we
thing.
were
It was that
discussing that,
close.
weren't we? We were literally saying, "Oh, geez, that is incredibly close." Because like the typhoon, this thing was miles out to sea, but this was uh, out to the Isle of Man and stuff like that. This was so far, like it has to have been at like almost a kilometer out to sea. It was so far out. But this gyrocopter was coming right up over the beach, right in front. I didn't even have to zoom in on my lens. It was too big to be in my lens at some points. And Joey's even got a bigger lens. It's just like was it, that's what I love about the gyrocopter, especially at Midlands. It uses the terrain to its advantage. So Midlands is a very foresty area with a little field. What it will do is there's like a gap in the tree line. The centre line's got like a gap, so it'll go above the trees, dip down into that, and then come like towards the crowd. It's just an amazing display to see. And I know that a lot of people who go to Blackpool Air Show and maybe even Midlands Air Show don't actually like aviation. Like I said, they're here to see the Red Arrows, they're here to see the Typhoon because it's loud, it's whatever. But those people who really do like aviation, like myself, like Joey, and like a lot of other photographers, like even the commentators, they're there to see these not rare but unique aircraft.
Yeah, you don't have to be like us and obsessed with aviation as a whole. But uh, if you can get to an air show, I would heavily recommend getting to an air show and staying for the whole thing. I mean, my dad was mainly going to air shows, mainly because I was making him go to them, but also to see the Typhoon. That was his favorite. But recently, it's the Pit Special. But that's what can happen at an air show. You go to see one thing, and in between seeing, uh, even in between getting there and seeing that, you might see something that you actually prefer. I don't think he prefers the Pit Special to the Typhoon, but I think he does like the Pit Special just because, I mean, Richard Goodwin's throwing
Yeah.
that thing upside down, inside out,
And it's got
round
jet
and round.
engines on the side of
Like,
it and everything.
yeah,
But before we do get too carried away, we are coming to the end of this segment. We've sort of got a bit sidetracked as per usual. But we got our main, 20, 30-minute segment of the Red Arrows bit that we wanted to get, and we got all our facts down. So we are going to move on to the final bit of the podcast, which is Takeoff Thursday announcements, Hampshire announcements, and the final Midlands Air Show announcement, and actually the one that we forgot to talk about last week. So we will see you in that in the next part. Welcome back, everyone, to part three of the podcast, the final part for this week. We are running quite low on time. We do want to keep this under an hour and a half if possible, so we only have about 5-10 minutes left. So we're going to quickly go through these announcements that we've got here. So we forgot last week's announcement from Midlands with the DA-42, which is a twin prop trainer aircraft that we did a promo for and then just forgot to speak about. It's flown by Bruce Booglis's dad. So Bruce flies for Team Raven this year, a brand new member. He used to do the mono display team. However, I'm not too sure if that's still really a thing anymore. I know he did it for the last few years, but he's now part of the Ravens that are now based at Sleep Airfield up in sort of like Shropshire area. So yeah, his dad's flying the DA-42 this year, which is a very exciting aircraft, as I've never seen it fly aerobatically or in a display sense. There is, in fact, I used to work for a company that owned excuse me, that owns DA-42s as like a training, like a flight training aircraft that I actually worked on a bit. So I know a bit about the DA-42, and as they're literally local at Daedalus, which is my local airport. But now we move on to the B-17, which is the US Air Force bomber. It's one of the most beautiful aircraft, and there's only one flying in Europe, which is Sally B, which is the nickname for this. So the B-17 Sally B. It's such an iconic aircraft at many air shows, and I love it. It's a very photogenic aircraft, especially on the underside of it, which is not usually with the photogenic side, but I prefer that because the green, it just blends in with like the trees and stuff like that, and it's just a very dark green. It's not very sharp, so I sort of prefer the underside of the aircraft, which is especially with the bomb bay as well. When you zoom directly into the bomb bay, it's a beautiful aircraft. But the B-17 is one of the most iconic aircraft of World War II. It usually did long range bombing missions from the US to Germany and the US to Japan. It went in many fronts. It was just in many movies. There's actually a movie like about the B-17, and its escort was the P-51 Mustang, which we have spoken about many times before, especially with things like Marinelle as well. So I'm literally speaking of, I saw Marinelle and the B-17 fly together. So, but yeah, no, the B-17 is one of my favorite aircraft. It's definitely a top 10 bomber of all time, and I probably could name a top 10. To be fair, you've got things in it like the Vulcan, the Lancaster, B-17, B-25, B-29. You've got all these American bombers and all that, and it's just like, the list could go on forever. I'm sure I could probably write it out someday, but it's definitely in the top 10 of bombers of all time, if not the top five. But I think it's just outside the top five, maybe the top seven, I'd say.
Yeah, the B-17 is something that I really want to see because I have never seen it before, at least not that I can remember. I tried looking into every air show that they have ever attended, and the only one that I found was Southport Air Show in like 2013 or something like that. And if I was there, I definitely don't remember it, so I cannot wait to see it and get some pictures of
Yeah,
it.
it's honestly crazy that you've never seen it. I mean, I've seen it more times last year alone than you've ever seen it in your entire life, and that's just crazy because it's such a common occurrence for me at an airshow. I go, okay, what's the next announcement going to be? Oh, it's the B-17. Of course, why did I not know it's the B-17? You know, it's like something that goes to all the airshows. It goes to Little Granston, goes to Midlands. It went to Sywell. You know, it's at every airshow that I ever go to. It was, you know, so it's something that I've seen so much and Joey's not seen at all. So it's going to be a very first experience with Joey, and it's going to be something that I go, oh well, you know, it's the B-7. I've seen it at Duxford as well. So yeah, but it's always an exciting aircraft to see. But Joey's now going to take you through our recent RIAT announcement, which unfortunately only includes one flying display. But at the end of the day, I'm sure more flying displays will be coming soon.
Yeah, so onto the takeoff Thursday from this week. The flying display is an Augusta AH-129D at Mangusta, probably mispronounced that. And this thing looks incredible. It looks like something out of Halo. It's like the Apache of the Halo world. And it's a unique aircraft. This is from the Italian Army, and it's something that I've never seen before. I will be getting lots of pictures of it. It's definitely one of the ones I'm most excited to see at RIAT this year so far. Speaking of the Italian Army, one of the statics is a Chinook from the Italian Army, an ICH-47F Chinook from the Italian Army. So if you go around the statics and you see a Chinook, it might be that one. Get some good pictures of it. Moving on to the Scottish Aviation Bulldog T1. This is owned by a private owner, and it will be with the statics as well. There is a British Aerospace Hawk T1 from L39 Aviation with a cool livery. I will get some pictures of this. Uh, I think it's a fairly common livery from what I've seen, but I'll definitely get in pictures of it because I've never seen one with this livery. Moving on to the last static from this takeoff Thursday is I'm going to probably mispronounce this, the SIAI Marchetti
Cy Marchetti.
SF-200. Sai Marchetti, okay. Yeah, that one. And this is also owned by a private owner, but once again, it's a good addition to the statics, and I'll also try and get pictures of everything I've just mentioned. I'll try and get pictures of, and everything that I'll basically try and get pictures of as many aircraft as I can, statics and flying, which includes the Marchetti. It includes the Bulldog and the Chinook and all of the ones we've mentioned before. So it's shaping up to be a good RIAT this year.
Yeah, I mean, I believe G Razzie or G Razzie with no A or something like that is the one that I have seen before, the Cy Marchetti that I've seen before. I'm sure we could probably get in contact with him and see if we can get him on the podcast to do more talk about the aircraft because he knows a lot more about it than we do, considering the fact that he flies it. So yeah, if that's something you guys want to see, please let us know on the Instagram. The comments on YouTube are still broken for who knows what reason. What we think is just not react. YouTube is just turning them off just because we look underaged or whatever. It's I don't know, that because we have them on literally in YouTube Studio and all that sort of stuff. So I don't see why they'd be off. So let us know in our Instagram DMs. Don't be afraid to DM us. We are very loving people. And yeah, but Hampshire have announced the MiG 17, which Joey and I will be seeing in Midlands, and I'll also be seeing in Hampshire. And it's doing a night, well, not like a nighttime display, but an evening display for Hampshire. So I'll get to see its afterburner at night, and that's going to be such an amazing display. I really can't wait for that. We have spoken about the MiG 17 in detail on an episode before, so I'm not going to like go into much detail about it. But it's coming from the Polish Air Force. Or not Polish Air, Polish like, heritage sort of flight, and it's going to be an amazing, amazing aircraft to see. Now, we do actually have one more sort of announcement to go, which is the evening sort of dusk display at Midlands. So on the Friday, they do something called a night glow or a night fire, which is basically two or three teams of like aerobatics or just evening displays. You also have hot air balloons and a firework finale. So First up, instead of the gliders this year, we have the Sydney Charles display team. So usually we have the NHS gliders flown by Tim and Tom Dews, flying around. They have like the NHS on the bottom. We've spoken about them before actually, with their thousands of pyrotechnics. This year we've got the Sydney Charles display team. I mean, we haven't actually researched that much about them, so we can't really say much. We have also got obviously the firework finale and the night glow, which is actually I'll show you a picture while it's here. Basically, if it sort of brightens down, you can see that the hot air balloons are like they put fire in the air and it sort of just makes them glow and stuff like that. I put a picture up on the screen as well. And obviously you also have the mass ascent that they do. So they do in the evening rather than at night time. So at like around 8 o'clock, they'll basically, when the wind's calm, if it is calm, they send like at least 100 air balloons up into the sky, which they did last year, which is always amazing to see. With the Michelin men as well, they usually have the Michelin men. They have all these special shapes that we could go into detail about. But we'll probably leave that to the Midlands Midlands balloon guy if we can get a hold of him.
Yeah, I'm annoyed that I won't be seeing this, but hopefully one day I'll be able to go to all of the days of Midlands, see everything. And you mentioned the shapes. I was actually showing my tutor some of the shapes, and he was very, I was gonna say perplexed at some of them. Like the screwdriver is the only one I'm going to mention now, but there's a screwdriver shape. Um, I don't know why there's a screwdriver shaped hot air balloon, but there is. So there's very abnormal shapes, and I wish I was there to see them.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of a special shape is actually really easy. It's literally a normal hot air balloon, a normal sort of oval shape hot air. I can't really do an oval shape, but like sort of like that, like a normal oval shape, and it's basically just sort of it's nothing special really. It's literally just sort of an empty bit of material that just makes a shape. So that it's literally just built off a normal hot air balloon, and it's definitely harder to fly them depending on like with the F1 car, which they have actually flown before, which is crazy to me, and stuff like that. And like, but me and my dad spoke to the guy last year. He just said it's a very easy concept. It's just a normal oval balloon with sort of just it built around a little bit of very light fabric built around it. Um, you can also get small balloons, so they're called like sport or racing balloons, which are tiny but rapid. So they don't have a traditional basket like that. They have a seat with the thing on the back, or like the what do you got, sort of like the ignition thing, and you pull the ignition, and it's a tiny balloon, but they go up to like 10,000 feet or whatever, and they race to the target. And basically, what you have to do is you have to be very good at navigating, and you have to like land on a specific target or something like that in the fastest time. I don't really know. I've never seen hot air balloon racing, but that's just what the commentator usually says when we're doing. Actually, I do have. They also do model hot air balloons, which is just crazy to me. And with the Gerald giraffe, I think it is, giraffes on tour. That we have their giraffes, like I've said mine's called Gerald and everything. We put them in a model hot air balloon while the guy held it and everything. That was just really fun. But finally, we have the BBMF Dakota on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday doing an evening display. So it will be closing the show on the Sunday, I believe. So at least Joey gets to see one evening display if his family decides to stay for that. I can't wait. I mean, look, I mean the picture of this in sort of a sunset. I know it's not too good to see, but that is just beautiful, and I cannot wait to get pictures of a BBMF Dakota at sunset, providing it doesn't break this year. So it's going to be such an amazing sight to see, and I'm sure it'll probably be around 6, 7, 8 o'clock really, for the Dakota, and then usually the nighttime bits start around 9. So you also have the RC models doing their pyrotechnic display and stuff like that, and then you'll get the then you'll get like the extra 300, which I'm not too sure is display. Is it displaying this year? I think it actually is. Yeah. So the extra 300 actually is the final one that's on the Friday as well. That does its sort of pyrotechnic smoke and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's going to be exciting, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I wish I was going as well, but I mean, you mentioned that I might see one of them, and if it is at the evening, I will definitely be persuading my parents to stay for the evening. Hopefully it works. It might not, but well, I can only try.
Yeah, I mean, I usually leave around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the Sunday because we do have to drive home. I mean, I think it's a little bit early, but well, I don't know. My parents say that we have to get back before 5 o'clock and all that sort of stuff. And it's just like, right, okay. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, in the future, I'm sure I'll be staying for all 3 days. I mean, me and Joey. I mean, financially, it will be fine. Once we have full paying jobs, it's not too bad. I mean, I have work at the moment, but I'm only Sunday job, so I only get minimum amount of money a month. But once we're older and once we have the money, we will be live stream. Well, not live. Sorry, not vlogging mainly the event and posting it on our podcast, which will 100% still be up by then. Um, and yeah, like I said, we'll be doing our air show tour, the display line air show tour around everything. So we'll see. I mean, we really want to go to Headcorn. Actually, that's one of the best air shows that I'm actually looking at this year. It's got everything. But yeah, we are running out of time. So Joey, just before we end off, do you want to take us through your weekly 2 minute recap?
Yeah, so it's been a good week, I'd say. This week we had not a whole lot of news. We had the F4 Phantoms spotted flying in Tehran. We had the F-18s arriving in the Middle East. We then went on to space news with the New Glenn failure and the Falcon 9 drone ship retiring. We then went on to weather news where we talked a little bit about a picture that was going not viral on Twitter, but it was gaining traction on Twitter of a tree
Yeah,
twisting. We went into the normal news segment with the Cessna crashing into the power pole, which actually during one of the breaks we had to get a drink and stuff, I checked, and based on what I can see, the pilot got taken to a hospital and is alive as of at least now. That could change, but as of now, he is alive. We then went on to the four Air Force cadets from Finland, doing uh, being unique in their own way. We went on to the ATR 72 brake failure. We then went on to the Red Arrows, which was the main bit of the episode.
the
We talked
heart
about
of
the
Britain.
history, the heart of Britain, yeah. We talked about the history, all about them, the team this year, the seven ship or nine ship debate, which even among our friends
Which you'll
and
find out in
stuff, like none of
Midlands
us,
the answers to that.
yeah, we'll find out in Midlands, yeah. Um, we then moved on to the Airshow announcements, which was a decently long list, which is why we couldn't sort of fill it with information this time. We had the Midlands with the DA-42 and the B-17, along with the nighttime sort of
I think mainly what
flying.
we're probably going to
Uh,
do, maybe
the-
one of the upcoming episodes, just before Joey finishes recap, maybe what we'll do is we'll get a just it will be dedicated to flying announcements and stuff like that because we do want to talk about them, but we just run out of time at the end because me and Joey now get sidetracked and we don't want to make the episode too long because 3 hours, oh, that was what a night that was. But maybe one of the next few episodes, I think what we should do is get some of these aircraft announcements and talk about them in detail.
Yeah. And then we went on to React announcement, this takeoff Thursday with the Augusta, the Marchetti, Chinook, Hawk, and Bulldog. And then Hampshire with the MiG 17. So it's been a good week, plenty of airshow announcements. The Red Arrows, we talked about them a lot, which is personally my favorite aspect of aviation. Airshows is my main aspect of aviation, and the Red Arrows are
Yeah.
the top of that list. So definitely one of my favorite episodes we've done just based on the main topic.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed last week as well. I do love tornadoes, but this is, I mean, the podcast we started off as just air show, and then we slowly moved to aviation, and then we added in space, and then we added in weather. So the podcast now is mainly an air show, but there is also the also main factors of space, aviation, and weather because we all think it really fits. I mean, the aviation and space industry are basically the same thing. I mean, rockets, what do? They go up into the sky, into the space, and that and it's they go into the air and then into the vacuum of space. But I mean, I think space. I mean, the our space program is literally mixed with the Royal Air Force, so I think that says enough. And weather, I mean, what's there not to love about weather? I mean, wow, I say that, but the study of weather more like. But yeah, I think it all fits together. So we do hope you enjoyed this podcast. We do hope you enjoyed the news and the Red Arrows. I know we got a bit sidetracked at the end talking about Blackpool Airport air show and all that sort of stuff. But no, we really do hope you enjoyed this episode. This was a very fun one to record, and we will see you next week. So take care, everyone. Make sure you check out our merch. Like we've got here, we will be bringing them to all air shows that we attend. And Joey's got his own merch. I've got my own merch. It's behind me. I don't really know if you can see it, but it's up there. And I'll be bringing it to all the air shows. So yeah, we do hope you enjoyed. Links are in our link tree. YouTube is recommended, and that's all really I have to say. So take care, everyone, and we will hopefully see you next week. Bye bye.